What would you do if the shadows of the night held a secret so deadly that not even a scream could warn of the danger? If the walls of an old mansion concealed a mechanism designed to kill, as stealthy as poison slipping through the cracks? This is the unsettling premise of the adventure of the Speckled Band, one of the darkest and most fascinating cases of the master detective Sherlock Holmes, created by the incomparable mind of Arthur Conan Doyle. It all begins on a cold, grey morning in London. At 221B, Baker Street, the modest but cozy apartment of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. John Watson, the London fog creeps through the windows like a harbinger of what is to come. Holmes, seated in his chair with his ever-present pipe in hand, is absorbed in his thoughts as he examines a sample of ashes, probably related to a previous case. Watson, as always, is by his side, observing him with a mix of admiration and curiosity when the door suddenly opens. Helen Stoner, a young woman, enters the room with a pale face and an expression of pure terror. Her appearance speaks volumes about her history. Her clothes are humble but marked by wear, and deep dark circles under her eyes reveal nights of insomnia and fear. "Mr. Holmes, I fear for my life," she begins, and with those words, the air in the room seems to thicken. Holmes, always analytical, observes every detail of her. The remnants of mud on her dress, the pressure marks on her hands, the way she nervously rubs her fingers. Watson, always the faithful chronicler and man of empathy, invites her to sit and encourages her to tell her story. Helen lives in Stoke Moran, a mansion in ruins in the English countryside. The property, once majestic, has fallen into a state of decay that mirrors the personality of its owner, Dr. Grimesby Roylott, Helen's stepfather, a man of explosive character and violent temper. Roylott, who was once a respected doctor in India, returned to England ruined, both financially and morally. He lives secluded at Stoke Moran, surrounded by exotic animals brought back from his time in the East, a leopard that roams freely on the grounds and a baboon that seems to lurk in the shadows. But it's not just Roylott's personality that torments Helen. 2 years ago, her twin sister, Julia, died under mysterious circumstances. Julia was engaged to be married, and on the eve of her wedding, she was found dead in her room. Her last words, spoken in an agonizing whisper, were, "The band. The Speckled Band." Since then, those words have been an enigma that no one has been able to decipher. Now, Helen fears her fate will be the same. Roylott has forced her to move into Julia's room due to supposed repairs in the house. And since then, Helen has begun to hear the same nocturnal sounds Julia described before her death, a faint whistle and a strange metallic creak. Holmes, intrigued by the case, agrees to investigate. The following day, together with Watson, they travel by train to the countryside to inspect Stoke Moran. The contrast between the bustling London and the stillness of the countryside is striking. The green fields and dirt roads offer a respite. But as they approach the mansion, the atmosphere changes. Stoke Moran, with its ivy-covered walls and broken windows, seems like a place that holds dark secrets. The garden is overrun with weeds, and an air of desolation pervades the entire place. Upon arrival, Holmes and Watson are confronted by the intimidating figure of Dr. Roylott. Tall and with a face marked by years of contained anger, Roylott greets them with barely contained hostility. "Stay out of my affairs, Holmes," he warns with a deep voice that resonates through the room. But Holmes, unshaken, simply gives him a cold stare and a slight nod before continuing with his work. Inside the mansion, Holmes carefully examines Helen's room, which once belonged to Julia. Nothing escapes his gaze. A bell that is not connected to any system, a ventilation grate that leads directly to Roylott's room, a bed inexplicably fixed to the floor. Every detail seems purposeful, though the purpose is still hidden. Holmes also inspects the door lock, the curtains, and even the floor, searching for any clue that could explain the events. As night falls, Holmes and Watson secretly return to Helen's room to set up surveillance. The scene is charged with tension. The wind whispers through the cracks, and the creaks of the old house seem amplified by the silence. Watson, though accustomed to adventures, feels the anxiety grow with each passing minute. Holmes, on the other hand, is in a state of absolute concentration, his eyes fixed on the ventilation grate. Suddenly, a faint whistle breaks the stillness. Holmes moves with the speed of lightning, striking the grate with his cane. A moment later, A blood-curdling scream echoes through the mansion, a sound so terrible that it makes Watson shudder. When the two men rush to Roylott's room, they find the man dead on the floor, his face contorted in a grimace of horror. Above his head, coiled like a macabre necklace, is the cause of it all, a swamp viper from India, its body decorated with a speckled pattern that glows in the lamplight. Holmes, with his characteristic calm, explains how he unraveled the mystery. Roylott, consumed by greed, had trained the snake to pass through the grate and attack while his stepdaughters slept. The whistle was the signal to call the snake back, and the metallic creak was the closing of its box. But that night, the snake, confused by Holmes' intervention, turned against its master, bringing him to his end. The case, though solved, leaves a lasting impact. Helen is safe, but the emotional scars of what she lived through will stay with her. Watson, as always, marvels at Holmes' brilliance, though he also feels a deep shiver when he thinks about the darkness that can lurk behind closed doors. Stoke Moran, now empty, becomes a place where silence reigns, but also a reminder of the lengths human greed can go. Arthur Conan Doyle, with his narrative mastery, immerses us in a world where every shadow may hide a danger and every sound could be a clue. This is just one of the many cases of the great Sherlock Holmes, the detective who revolutionized the mystery genre and continues to captivate readers around the world. We invite you to read not only the adventure of the Speckled Band, but the entire works of Conan Doyle, a universe filled with wit, danger, and unforgettable adventures. If this story left you intrigued, don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of Holmes' ingenuity or the darkness that this story holds? Give it a like if you were fascinated, subscribe to the channel for more tales like this, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss our upcoming stories. See you in the next mystery.